George Washington. Written by Carolyn Crosson Gilpin. Who was George Washington? George Washington was the first president of the United States. He was a farmer, a soldier, and a hero. He helped America become a free country. Portrait, a picture or painting of a person. Growing up, George was born on February 22, 1732, on a farm in Virginia to a large family. He spent much of his time with his older brother Lawrence. Lawrence lived on a plantation called Mount Vernon. He was an army officer. George wanted to be just like him. Teaching himself. When George was 11, his father died. He had to stop going to school to help at home, but George read a lot and taught himself. When he was 17, he got a job measuring land to make maps. George was brave and strong. He was very good at riding horses. This helped him become a great soldier a few years later. Becoming a leader. In the 1700s, America was not yet the United States of America. It began as just 13 colonies, ruled by King George III in England. People came on ships to live in America. They wanted more freedom than the king would give them in England. In his time, many things were very different in the 1700s. Many colonists lived on farms and built most of their own houses and furniture. They used homemade candles to light their rooms. Food. Most people grew their own vegetables, such as squash and peas. They hunted animals such as deer and rabbits for meat. Staying in touch. There were no telephones. People used feather pens and ink to write long letters. The letters took weeks to reach the other person. Chores and school. Children helped with farm chores. Most children did not go to school. They learned to read and write at home. Mount Vernon. Sadly, when George was 20, his brother Lawrence died. Later, George became the owner of Mount Vernon. In 1759, George married Martha Custis. They were happy together at Mount Vernon. That's a fact. George Washington did not have a middle name. The making of a hero. In the 1760s, there was trouble coming. King George III made the colonists pay extra money for tea and other supplies they needed. The colonists didn't think it was fair. They were angry. They wanted freedom from England. They asked George Washington to lead the American army against the British Army. War and Peace. The Revolutionary War started in 1775. The British thought they would win. They had more men and supplies. American soldiers didn't have enough food or warm clothes, but they would do almost anything for freedom. In 1776, America's leaders signed the Declaration of Independence. It said America had a right to be free and to make its own rules. The British didn't agree. They sent more troops to fight. For 8 long years, the war went on. The British were tired of fighting a war far from home. The British were beginning to run out of supplies and money. Finally, they gave up in 1783. America had won its freedom. 5 cool facts about George. 1. He had false teeth made from things like lead and ivory. He did not have wooden teeth. 2. He was born on February 22nd, but today most Americans celebrate his birthday on the 3rd Monday of that month, often called President's Day. 3. He liked fox hunting on horseback. One of his favorite horses was named Blueskin. 4. He liked cornmeal pancakes called hoe cakes, with butter and honey for breakfast. 5. He was very tall, almost 6'3". He had size 13 feet. Very first president. How would this new country work? In 1787, men from each state came together to write new rules for the United States. They called these rules the Constitution. Then they had to choose a new leader. George Washington was elected the first president of the United States in 1789. It was a big job to unite the new country. Home again. After 8 years as president, George gave up his power. He was happy to go home to Mount Vernon again. He had many visitors. He rode his horses every day. In December 1799, George got sick with a bad sore throat. There was no medicine in his time to cure him. He was 67 years old when he died. In his honor, George Washington was greatly loved. He is the only president to have a state named after him. His face is on the dollar bill, the quarter, and a U.S. postage stamp. That's a fact. George Washington was the only president who did not live in the White House. At 555 feet, the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. is the world's tallest stone structure. Thank you for joining Mrs. Lindsay for George Washington, written by Carolyn Crosson Gilpin. I can't wait for us to go on another book adventure. Come back to Mrs. Lindsay's Book Nook, where everyone is a reader. Be sure to subscribe. See you next time, readers.